Okay, we're back in John. It's been about a week and a half since we picked it up. We left off at the end of the woman at the well story. Verse 21, I think we'll pick it up today. So chapter 4, verse 21. And we've been through the process of looking how Jesus invites this woman. She doesn't have a name. She's a Samaritan. She seems to be outside of her society, and Jesus brings her in, has a rabbinical conversation with her. Tells her that the water, he can give her living water. He'll put it in her, and she asks for the water, and then she comes into a conversation about where's the right place to worship, like where we worship, Samaritans on Mount Gerizim, or where the Jews worship on Mount Sinai, or Sinai. That's funny. Zion, Mount Zion. Sinai is in the wilderness with Moses, but Mount Zion in Jerusalem. And Jesus says something really profound, but it's probably par for the course in John's gospel. He says that the Father is looking for those who will worship in spirit and truth. And this is an echo of the conversation he had with Nicodemus, where he said you have to be born of water and the Spirit to see the kingdom. So these are kind of two aspects, two conversations. You know, you have, like I said before, Nicodemus is the very learned. He's the Jewish man, leader. He doesn't have a long conversation with Jesus. This woman has a long conversation with him. But both of these, water and the Spirit and Spirit and truth, are kind of two sides of what Jesus is trying to show them, to give us, is that, you know, place and the way to worship is not the way it works anymore. There's not a kind of formulaic way to approach God, which had been happening for thousands of years. People have made these formulas up, and now Jesus is bringing something completely different, spirit and truth. And you have to think about what does that mean? What does spirit and truth mean? Does this have to do with, there's my phone. Does this have to do with telling the truth, that kind of truth, or understanding Jesus as truth, and how does the Spirit operate in that? So it's all that's a little bit annoying, but I'm just going to keep on going. He does say in verse 22, well, in 21 he says, the time is coming where we're not going to worship on this mountain or that mountain. So he's prophetically saying, you know, they're gonna go away, and they both are destroyed. The Jewish temple not too far in the future from Jesus, another 40 years really. And he does say that we worship what we know, because salvation is from the Jews. And this could have a lot of reasons for saying this. If you know the Samaritans, they only have the first 5 books of the Bible, the Pentateuch. They don't have the Jewish scriptures of the prophets. So maybe he's alluding to that. There's also the wisdom portion of the Bible, like the Psalms, the Proverbs, Job, those kinds of things. The Samaritans don't hold those either. So it could be that he's talking from a scriptural point of view. Not sure, really. But he says the time is coming and is now here. So that's like a signal. When he told his mom in chapter 2 at the wedding, it's not my time yet. The time is not here. Now he's alluding to the fact that the time is here, and Jesus is giving this Samaritan woman the insight into what he's about. And so it sounds like this is the initiation point for his time. It sounds a lot like it. Then later on at the crucifixion, they talk about the time or the hour. So there's this Jesus ministry is kind of fits into that box of the time is now. So he says the time is coming and is now here, like it's beginning here, where true worshipers worship the Father in spirit and truth. That's verse 23. These are the kind of worshipers the Father seeks. God is spirit, verse 24, and his worshipers must worship in spirit and truth. So he's setting this, it's a little bit mysterious, a little ambiguous of what exactly that means. But it does set the tone for what John's gospel is about, right? This more ambiguous, mysterious sense of God's spirit or presence in worship and meeting Jesus. And then after this, the woman, in verse 25, the woman said, I know the Messiah, who's called the Christ, is coming. When he comes to us, when he comes, he will explain everything to us. So she alludes to the Messiah, or to Christ, and then this kind of sets Jesus up. In verse 26, Jesus declared, I who speak to you am he. And we talked about this in our Bible study, that it actually says in Greek, ego eimi, which is just I am. He doesn't say I am he. The translators add that in, which is interesting because I would make the case, and other commentators, that Jesus is really echoing or emulating the encounter that Moses had in the burning bush, where Moses, takes off his shoes, his bush is burning, not consumed, and that the way that the Hebrew mystics translate this story is that the bush is really on the inside. It's the person, right? Like the tree of life, that's on fire, right? On fire with God's spirit, and that it's not burning up, not consuming him, but he is sort of in the presence of the I am within Moses. That's the one way to look at that story. And that Jesus is kind of pulling that and saying, that connection with God that Moses had and my presence is the I am, right? I am. That's what it means to be Messiah here in John. That's what it means to be the Christ, is to be this I am presence. And so I'd much rather the translators said, the one who's speaking to you, I am. That's what it says. Bringing in that Moses story. So that's a big verse, verse 26. Okay, then verse 27. Just then his disciples returned and were surprised to find him talking with a woman, but no one asked him, what do you want, or why are you talking with her? So here, John, as the narrator, tells us that this is a big deal, again, reminding us that, standing alone at a well with a woman in the middle of nowhere is not allowed, right? The society looks down on that. It's very dangerous. And so John lets us know through the disciples' eyes, like, this is a big deal, but they didn't dare say anything, right? Because the disciples are used to kind of getting whacked by Jesus on the back of the head when they say dumb things. So they're not going to tempt that, but they're on guard, right? They don't understand what is happening here. Jesus is breaking the rules, and they're reacting to it. Verse 28, then leaving her water jar, the woman went back to the town and said to the people, come and see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Christ? Verse 30, they came out of the town and made their way toward him. So she immediately, right? And part of it, the disciples showing up probably causes her to exit, right? She doesn't want to deal with these guys. She doesn't know them. But she goes back into the town where, we're not sure what her relationship is with the rest of the townspeople, that community. But it would seem like she's on the outside of it since she's gathering water in the middle of the day alone. But she has no fear now. She goes in and she says, I have found the one who told me everything about myself. Jesus has connected with her in that same way that he connected with Nathanael at the tree, right? When he said, I saw you under the tree, Nathanael goes, you are the Son of God. Jesus seems to have connected in that same way where she says, he knows everything, right? He knows everything. Would really lend itself to this I am sense of God's presence. And she leaves her water jar in verse 28, a symbol of, not needing the things, the regular things anymore once you have the living water that comes from Christ. And so she gives the witness, right? That's the way John's gospel works. You see, you experience, you know for yourself, and then you witness. That martyrion, that word in Greek that means to witness, has that martyr sense in there, martyrion. And she does that, right? She goes unafraid, right, to be a martyr or to be a witness to the people. It's about 10 minutes. I'm going to stop there, and then I'll do another video on the heels of this and pick up where we left off. Thank you.